Tuesday, 2:47 p.m., Liberty Trust Bank, downtown Fairview. Your kind doesn't deserve to handle real money, preacher boy. This fake garbage gets burned. Martin Holloway's silver lighter flicks. The $2.3 million business check catches fire, curling into bright orange flame. He raises it high, savoring the gasps, before letting it fall. The burning paper drifts to the floor at Daniel Cross's feet. Daniel, 45, wearing faded jeans and a gray hoodie, doesn't move. A small cross necklace glints faintly against his shirt as the flames dance between his white sneakers. Holloway grinds the ashes under his polished Italian leather heel, twisting hard, his eyes locked on Daniel's calm face. "Look at that," Holloway sneers to the swelling crowd. Problem solved. 3 customers record on their phones. A blonde woman whispers into her live stream, the comment feed scrolling rapidly. The security guard steps forward, one hand on his radio. "Sir, you need to leave." Daniel's hand drifts toward his jacket pocket, pauses, then drops. The digital wall clock reads 2:48 p.m., 12 minutes until his board meeting. Have you ever been judged so harshly that someone literally burned your worth in front of you? Everyone, take note. Holloway crows, pointing at the smoldering ashes. Did you see how I handled that phony? Burned his so-called blessing right here in God's house of finance. Problem solved. The charred remains stick to Daniel's sneakers. The acrid scent of scorched paper spreads. Thin trails of smoke curl across the marble floor. "Mr. Holloway, maybe we should..." begins Claire Dawson, the assistant manager, glancing nervously at the crowd. "Quiet, Claire." Holloway's eyes shine. "Sir, what's your real name? And don't feed me some fake scripture story to match that worthless paper I just torched." The live streamer shifts her phone toward Daniel, her viewer count climbing. 47. 156. 312. 478. Comments flood. "Oh my God, he burned it." Savage manager? Check burn. Faith fraud Holloway kicks at the ashes, scattering fragments wider. "You walk into my bank with your Bible verses and your charity rags, flashing a check bigger than most people's salaries? Thought faith would fool us? Watch this." He grinds his heel again, pulverizing the blackened scraps into dust. An elderly woman in pearls and a designer blazer claps softly near the investment desk. "Bravo, Martin." That's how you deal with his kind. They wave scripture and expect trust. "Burn first, ask later." The crowd swells. A businessman in a navy suit mutters, "Should have done that the moment he walked in." Daniel's platinum card glints from his wallet as he slowly reaches for his ID. Holloway spots it, snatches the wallet, and waves it triumphantly. Well. Stolen cards, too. He brandishes it high. "Ladies and gentlemen, behold our complete package. Fake checks, stolen cards, probably some preacher's fake ID coming next." The guard murmurs urgently into his radio. "Fraud suspect with destroyed evidence and stolen property." Daniel finally speaks. His tone even, almost unsettling in its calmness. "Mr. Holloway, I'll need my wallet back. When the police arrive, you can explain to them how you came to be holding it." Holloway pockets the wallet theatrically. "Along with how you managed to forge that check I had to incinerate, for evidence preservation, of course." A teen with purple hair films from the ATM line, already uploading. Bank manager torches check. Fire beats fraud. Manager's savage. Check burn. Faith fraud, 2:52 p.m. Daniel glances at the clock. For the first time, a faint crack shows in his composure. "Oh, running late for choir practice?" Holloway jeers, pointing at the ash pile. "Don't worry. You won't be going anywhere." That's what happens to so-called holy frauds in Martin Holloway's bank. Daniel's phone buzzes in his pocket. Ignored calls. The sound draws Holloway's glare. "Turn that off. Your flock can wait." The live stream surges past 650 viewers. Comments explode. He literally torched it. Ashes to ashes, faith to fraud. The video spreads across feeds. Straightening his silk tie, Holloway basks in the attention. "This is why we keep strict security. People like this think quoting Bible verses will fool hard-working Americans." Claire shifts uneasily. The pearl-clad woman nods with smug approval. A burly man mutters, "Should have just called cops, but burning it drives the message to his kind. Phones record from every angle." The bank's Tuesday business has ground to a halt. Daniel's eyes flick to a boarding pass peeking from his pocket. Fairview to Tokyo, first class tomorrow morning. The detail goes unnoticed. Sir, please wait over there until authorities arrive. The lead guard orders, pointing to the seating area. Daniel studies the blackened ashes, then Holloway, almost amused. I believe there's been a significant misunderstanding. Holloway throws his head back in laughter. The only misunderstanding is thinking a check from a cross-wearing fraud would work here. 5 p.m. He turns to his audience. Ladies and gentlemen, this is vigilance. Burn the fraud, protect the innocent, never let zealots trick honest bankers. The crowd murmurs its approval, phones rolling, while Daniel's Swiss watch gleams as he checks the time. 5 minutes until his board meeting. 5 p.m. The crowd swelled, hungry for more spectacle. Claire, get over here immediately, Holloway barked, his voice booming across the marble lobby with self-styled authority. You need to witness how real fraud prevention looks in practice. Assistant Manager Claire Dawson approached reluctantly, her designer heels clicking against the pristine floor where Daniel's burned check still scattered like black confetti. She stared at the ash pile, then at Daniel's unnaturally calm face, something unsettled flickering behind her professional composure. Take detailed notes for your training file, Holloway commanded pompously, pointing to the charred remains. This is textbook criminal behavior. Counterfeit check, stolen wallet, most likely forged identity. Next, I destroyed the evidence before he could hide it or hand it off to some fellow church buddy. The live stream counter ticked past 200 viewers, comments flooding in faster than eyes could follow. This is insane! Manager's a legend. Christian dude got owned. Call the FBI. This beats Netflix. The blonde woman filming adjusted her angle carefully, capturing both Daniel's composed face and the ash pile in a single frame. A second guard jogged over, slightly out of breath. What's the situation? He asked his colleague. Major fraud attempt, the first guard declared. Manager burned the counterfeit check. Suspects got multiple stolen cards, Holloway puffed out his chest with pride. That's absolutely correct, officer. See those ashes? That was a $2.3 million fraudulent instrument. Can you believe the audacity of a man who thinks a cross around his neck earns him trust? 3 teenagers near the overpriced coffee kiosk abandoned their lattes to record, one already posting, "Bank manager torches preacher's fake check. Savage justice. Their faith fraud. Check burn." Daniel sat in the leather chair as instructed, strangely relaxed. His Swiss watch caught the fluorescent lights as he checked the time. 2:57 p.m., exactly 3 minutes left. You seem awfully calm for someone just caught red-handed, Holloway observed, circling him like a shark. Most criminals panic when their sanctimonious schemes fall apart. Do they really? Daniel replied softly, his voice deep, steady. His eyes followed Holloway's theatrical steps. Oh, look, he speaks, Holloway announced mockingly. Ladies and gentlemen, the holy fraud has something to say. Please, enlighten us with your Bible verses and tall tales. The pearl-clad woman edged closer, her equally groomed companion trailing behind. I've never seen anything like this in 40 years of banking, she whispered loudly enough for all to hear. Burning the fraudulent evidence right there. Brilliant strategy. A balding man in a 3-piece suit added with a grin, You should run for mayor, Martin. This city needs more people willing to stand up to zealots pretending to be businessmen. Holloway basked in the attention, smoothing his silk tie. Just doing my civic duty, protecting hard-working citizens from so-called men of faith trying to fleece the system? Daniel's phone buzzed again. He glanced at the glowing screen. Urgent. Board meeting starting now. Where are you? Turn that device off immediately, Holloway snapped. Your prayer group can wait. Daniel rose slowly. Actually, I do need to take this call. It's important. Both guards stepped forward, hands near their gear. Sit back down, sir, the first ordered. You're not going anywhere until police arrive. The viewer count surged past 1,500. The live streamer whispered, Oh my God, he's trying to leave. The scammer's making a break for it. Holloway laughed harshly, sweeping his arm toward the ashes. Everyone, look at that pathetic pile of carbon. That was your payday, wasn't it? Your holy hustle reduced to dust. Nothing but ashes. And humiliation. Claire shifted uneasily at the counter, her instincts screaming something wasn't right. "Martin, maybe we should verify a few details." "Verify what?" Holloway snapped. "The check's destroyed. The wallet secured. Case closed." The bank's front doors opened. A sharply dressed woman entered, carrying a leather briefcase. She froze at the crowd, the smell of burned paper thick in the air. "Excuse me, what exactly is happening here?" she asked a nearby man. "The manager caught a professional scammer red-handed," he said eagerly. "Burned his fake check right in front of us. Whole thing's going viral." Her eyes widened as she spotted Daniel, seated calmly under guard. She reached immediately for her phone. Holloway noticed her and raised his voice theatrically. "Ma'am, you're witnessing justice in action. This man strutted in with a fake check for $2.3 million, waving his faith around like it meant honesty." $2.3 million, the pearl-clad woman repeated indignantly. "Can you imagine the audacity of these people?" A group of college students trickled in, drawn by the crowd and the smell of burned paper. Phones were out within seconds. They filmed with multiple devices now, flooding TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram with clips of the burning. Daniel checked his watch again, deliberately, the faintest shift crossing his face, as if he'd just made a critical decision. 2:58 p.m. The live comments grew uglier by the second, dripping with hostility toward his faith. "Lock the church boy up." "Typical preacher scam. Should have called the cops right away." At least the fake check got torched. Justice served. No more hiding behind the Bible. Holloway soaked it all in, puffing his chest, his voice growing louder with every sentence. This is what happens when honest, hard-working Americans finally stand up to religious con men. We don't negotiate with frauds. We don't enable their lies. We destroy their tools and expose them for what they are. The crowd hummed in agreement, echoing and amplifying his theater. Dozens of phones recorded Daniel sitting calm, still, framed by ashes and accusations. Claire Dawson tugged at Holloway's sleeve. "Martin, something doesn't add up. Look at his shoes, they're Italian leather. And that watch, it's a real Swiss piece." His posture, his tone. "None of this matches your story." "Not now," Holloway barked, brushing her off, still drunk on his viral moment. Daniel's phone buzzed one last time, urgent. He studied the screen, then glanced at Holloway, then at the ashes of his check. For the first time since walking in, Daniel Cross smiled. 59 p.m. "Mr. Holloway," he said, his voice cutting through the clamor, calm but commanding. "I think it's time we had a proper professional conversation." Holloway laughed, throwing his arms wide for the cameras. "Oh, now the preacher wants to negotiate. Sorry, friend. Your sermon ended the second you tried to pass off that counterfeit." Daniel reached slowly into his jacket. The guards stiffened, hands on their belts. "Move carefully," one warned. The edge of a first-class boarding pass peeked out briefly, Fairview to Tokyo, before Daniel's hand slid past it. Exactly 1 minute until his board meeting. 1 minute until everything changed. p.m. He withdrew not a weapon but a simple white card, setting it gently on the counter beside the ashes. The sound was barely audible, but the meaning thundered across the lobby. The nearest guard leaned down to read it. His face went pale. Daniel Cross, chairman and CEO, Cross Capital Group. The live streamer zoomed in, her hands shaking. Comments erupted like fireworks. "Wait, what?" CEO plot twist. "No way this is real." "Man's the owner?" Holloway barked a laugh, trying to smother his unease. "Please, anyone can print a fake business card at the corner shop." "What's next, Pastor? A forged ministry license?" Daniel reached calmly into his jacket again, producing a sleek tablet. With unhurried precision, he opened Liberty Trust Bank's secure app and navigated to a portal no customer had ever seen. The screen glowed corporate blue. Executive board access. Restricted. His fingers moved with the ease of habit. A login prompt. He entered credentials swiftly without hesitation. The screen refreshed, displaying an irrefutable profile. Daniel Cross, principal shareholder, 73%. Ownership, Cross Capital Group Holdings. Position, chairman of the board of directors. Board member, since January 2018, next meeting, Tuesday. 3 South p.m. Emergency session, customer service review security clearance. Level 10, full executive access. The first guard's radio slipped from his hand and hit the marble with a sharp crack that echoed through the stunned silence. Claire gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. "Oh my God, Martin. Do you see that? Do you understand what this means?" The entire lobby froze, cameras still rolling, as the performance Holloway had staged unraveled in real time. "That's obviously fake software," Holloway blurted, his voice cracking, the polished edge gone. Sweat dotted his forehead despite the cool air. Anyone with basic coding skills can make up churchy-looking graphics on a tablet. This is just another elaborate trick. Daniel slowly turned the tablet toward the crowd so every phone camera could capture the display. The live streamer zoomed in, her breath quick. "Guys, it literally says he owns 73% of the bank. Is this for real? Someone confirm this is insane." The viewer count exploded past 2,000 as clips spread across TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook simultaneously. Comments flew by like wildfire. "Holy, he actually owns it." "Manager is done. This is the best twist in internet history. Imagine humiliating your boss on live stream." Another woman by the investment desk started a fresh stream to her own followers. A college student uploaded clips titled "Bank Owner Gets Profiled." Plot twist of the century. Daniel's voice rose above the chaos, calm, steady, unshakable. "Mr. Holloway, would you like to know exactly what that check you burned so dramatically in front of your audience contained?" The manager faltered, but pride chained him. "I don't care what lies you've scripted into fake apps. That check was counterfeit, and I destroyed it for my customers' safety." "It was my quarterly dividend," Daniel replied evenly. "From this bank to me, its majority shareholder." The silence was crushing. Even the hum of the AC seemed to pause. Daniel swiped again, revealing official records bearing Liberty Trust Bank's watermark. Cross Capital Group dividend, Q4 2024. Amount, $247,000. Authorized by Board Resolution 847B, issued Tuesday, December 15th. He gazed down at the ashes on the marble, then back at Holloway with a trace of curiosity. "You just burned $2,347,000 of my personal money." "On camera, with thousands watching." Holloway's face drained from red to pale to sickly green. The wallet in his pocket felt suddenly like a brick. His lips moved soundless. That can't be." Daniel swiped again, pulling up the personnel directory, scrolling with the smooth confidence of someone with full clearance. "Martin Holloway," Daniel read aloud. "Branch manager, downtown Fairview. Employee ID 4847. Salary $127,000. Hired March 15th, 2018. Performance satisfactory. Supervisor, Regional Manager Jennifer Hayes. Emergency contact, Linda Holloway, spouse." His eyes met Holloway's, sharp and unflinching. "You've been working for me for exactly 6 years and 8 months, Martin." The pearl-clad woman who had cheered him earlier shrank back toward the exit. The man who had called for Holloway to run for mayor went stiff, face twisted with dawning horror. Even the teenagers froze mid-recording, their excitement collapsing into stunned disbelief. One whispered, "Did we just watch a guy burn his boss's money?" The live stream viewer count soared past 3,500, comments unreadable in their flood of fire emojis and shocked reactions. Claire found her voice trembling. "Mr. Cross, I am so deeply sorry. We had no idea. This never should have happened." "Of course you didn't know," Daniel replied softly. "I don't announce who I am when I visit branches. I dress casually. I carry myself like any other customer. Because I believe every customer deserves respect, no matter what they wear, what they believe, or what they own." He stood tall and calm, scanning the same crowd that had so eagerly filmed his humiliation moments before. Now many stared at the floor or buried themselves in their screens. "But here's what troubles me most," he continued, voice like iron wrapped in silk. This wasn't about security procedures. It wasn't about counterfeit detection. This was about assumption, about prejudice, about deciding that because I wore a cross, prayed before making a transaction, and spoke of faith, I couldn't possibly be worthy of respect. Holloway seemed to wither. his once perfect suit hanging loose, his bravado evaporated. "Sir, if I had known who you were—" "That's the problem," Daniel cut in firmly. "If you had known who I was." "What about who I am? What about every Christian who walks into your branch deserving dignity without suspicion?" The ashes on the marble floor glowed in the harsh lobby lights. A $2.3 million mistake burned live before thousands. Daniel glanced at his Swiss watch one final time. 3:02 p.m., 2 minutes late for the board meeting. He turned back to Holloway, eyes steady, tone final. That meeting was originally called to discuss customer service standards at this branch. I wonder what we'll be discussing now. 3 p.m. The reckoning begins. Daniel Cross opened another secure app on his tablet with the deliberate ease of someone who had used it 1,000 times. The corporate financial dashboard illuminated instantly as the figures appeared in cold, undeniable precision. The last traces of color drained from Holloway's face like water from a broken vessel. "Let me share some concrete numbers with you." "Martin," Daniel said, his calm voice carrying more power than any shouting could. "Liberty Trust Bank generated $847 million in total revenue last year. My investment group, Cross Capital, contributed $623 million of that through our majority stake and affiliated business operations." The live stream audience, now pushing 4,000 and climbing, fell silent, transfixed. Daniel swiped slowly through official reports, stamped with corporate watermarks and legal insignias. Comments poured like a flood. "He's got the real numbers. This feels like a movie. Managers finished. CEO using spreadsheets as weapons." Claire Dawson stood frozen behind the counter, realization dawning that she was watching corporate history unfold. The ashes at her heels were no longer just charred paper, they were the physical evidence of a catastrophic act of discrimination. "This specific branch," Daniel continued, his tone razor-sharp in its composure, "processes about $45 million each month. That's $540 million annually. Your personal salary, Martin, is $127,000, and that paycheck flows directly from profits generated by my capital." Holloway's mouth opened and shut helplessly, words failing him. The stolen wallet in his pocket now burned heavier than the ashes he'd created. Daniel swiped again, pulling up the bank's corporate governance policies. The screen filled with legal text. He read aloud, his voice clear and deliberate. Section 4.2 of the Liberty Trust Employee Handbook. Discrimination by personnel toward customers based on race, gender, religion, or perceived economic status is a violation of federal law and corporate policy. Any employee found guilty faces immediate. Disciplinary action up to and including termination, with cause and forfeiture of benefits. The words echoed like a sermon in the silent lobby. The pearl-clad woman who had cheered Holloway minutes earlier began edging toward the exit. Others followed her lead like a retreating congregation abandoning a false preacher. Clause 7.8 grants board members, specifically me, as chairman, the unilateral authority to suspend personnel pending disciplinary proceedings. Daniel traced the clause with his finger. Article 12 requires that all incidents of discriminatory conduct be permanently recorded, reported to federal authorities, and disclosed in background checks. Mr. Cross. "Please," Holloway croaked, his voice a shadow of its former bravado. "I didn't know who you were. I never meant—" "But here's the most legally significant part," Daniel cut in, steady, devastating. "You didn't just profile me for wearing a cross around my neck. You didn't just mock my faith as if it made me unfit for business. You willfully destroyed a legitimate financial instrument. Burning that check is a federal crime under Section 1341 of the U.S. Criminal Code, destruction of financial documents. Penalties, up to $1 million in fines and 20 years imprisonment. The live stream counter broke 5,000 as hashtags erupted nationwide. Faith profiled, bank burns check. Justice served, Cross vs. Holloway. News outlets were already resharing clips in real time. Daniel rose, every movement deliberate, each step toward Holloway echoing like Judgment Day. Tablet in hand, his words carried the weight of absolute authority. "So let me present your options. Mr. Holloway." His tone was surgical, merciless in its precision. "Option 1. You immediately issue a public apology to every person here and to the thousands watching online. You admit to your discriminatory actions against a Christian customer. You agree to mandatory sensitivity training. A written reprimand goes permanently in your record. You keep your job, barely, under strict probation. Relief flickered across Holloway's pale face. But Daniel's calm voice continued. However, given the gravity of your actions, option 1 comes with conditions. You will be demoted from branch manager to assistant manager with a 40% pay cut. You will personally reimburse the bank $50,000 for destroying my check. And you will perform 200 hours of unpaid community service at financial literacy centers in underserved neighborhoods, including churches whose members you so casually disrespected. The entire crowd, once complicit, now stood silent, every phone recording, every eye fixed on the trembling man who had just humiliated himself before the nation. 3:03 p.m., the reckoning begins. Daniel cross-tapped another app on his tablet with the precision of a man in complete control. The corporate dashboard sprang to life, displaying live figures that drained the last vestige of color from Holloway's face. Let's talk numbers. Martin, Daniel said, his calm voice somehow heavier than shouting. Liberty Trust Bank generated $847 million in total revenue last year. My investment group, Cross Capital, accounted for $623 million of that through our majority stake and associated partnerships. The live stream audience ticked past 4,000, watching with breathless silence as he swiped through reports watermarked with official seals. Comments streamed by, "He's got the receipts." This is like a courtroom drama in real time. CEOs frying him with spreadsheets. Claire Dawson stood frozen behind the counter. The blackened ash at her feet no longer looked like paper. It looked like the smoldering evidence of a catastrophic act of discrimination. This branch alone, Daniel continued, handles about $45 million a month, $540 million annually. Your salary, Martin, is $127,000, drawn directly from profits made possible by my capital. Holloway's knees wobbled. The stolen wallet in his pocket now burned hotter than the ashes on the marble. Daniel swiped again, this time to the governance manual. His voice took on the weight of law itself. Section 4.2, employees shall not discriminate against customers on the basis of race, gender, religion, or perceived economic status. Violation results in immediate disciplinary action, up to and including termination with cause and forfeiture of benefits. The pearl-clad woman who had applauded earlier edged toward the exit. Others followed quietly, the once cheering crowd breaking like a guilty congregation after a false sermon. Clause 708 grants the chairman authority to suspend personnel immediately. Article 12 requires all incidents of religious discrimination be permanently recorded and reported to federal regulators. Please, Holloway croaked. I didn't know who you were. I never meant... Daniel cut him off, his voice like steel sheathed in velvet. You didn't just mock my clothes or my demeanor. You mocked my faith. You saw a cross necklace, heard scripture in my voice, and assumed fraud. Then you destroyed a valid financial instrument. That is a federal crime, Section 1341 of the U.S. Code. Up to $1 million in fines. Up to 20 years in prison. The live stream count surged past 5,000. Hashtags ignited. Faith profiled. Bank burns check. Justice in real time. Cross vs. Holloway. News outlets began stitching clips mid-broadcast. Daniel rose. Each step toward Holloway echoed like a gavel. Option 1, Daniel said, voice calm but merciless, is public apology to every customer here and to the thousands watching online. You'll acknowledge that you discriminated against me because of my Christian faith. You'll accept mandatory sensitivity training, a written reprimand, and probation. And you'll stay employed. Barely. Relief flickered across Holloway's face. But Daniel pressed on. Under option 1, you're demoted to assistant manager with a 40% pay cut. You'll reimburse $50,000 for the destroyed check. And you'll perform 200 hours of community service at faith-based financial literacy centers, the very communities you mocked. The crowd murmured. Phones recorded. The weight of justice pressed into the marble. Option 2, Daniel continued, his tone now like a judge's verdict, is termination for cause, complete loss of pension, referral to federal prosecutors, and permanent blacklisting from the banking industry. The live stream itself guarantees your reputation will follow you forever. The words fell like hammer blows. But there's more, Daniel added, glancing at the ashes. That $347 million wasn't just my dividend. It was funding for financial literacy programs, small business loans, scholarships, and community outreach, much of it through churches. Your prejudice didn't just insult me. It harmed the communities this bank is meant to serve. Holloway's face crumpled. Sir, please. I have a family, kids in college, a mortgage. Don't take everything for one mistake. One mistake? Daniel's voice finally sharpened, cutting like a blade. You didn't trip and fall into prejudice, Martin. You chose it. You mocked my faith proudly. You wanted witnesses to your bigotry. You wanted validation. He gestured to the cameras. Well, you got it. Thousands of them. The guards, caught in the reversal, stood frozen. I need your decision right now, Daniel said, finger hovering over the termination form. Option 1, public apology, restitution, demotion. Or option 2, termination, prosecution, career destruction. You have 60 seconds. The wall clock ticked to 3:07 p.m. The seconds dragged. The weight of thousands online pressed down like judgment. At 30 seconds, Holloway's legs buckled. At 10 seconds, his lips trembled. I choose option 1, he whispered hoarsely. Daniel lowered his tablet. Louder, Martin. Face the cameras. The woman filming zoomed in. 6,000 viewers leaned in through their screens. I, Martin Holloway, he began, voice cracking, apologize to Mr. Daniel Cross for my discriminatory behavior. I made assumptions because of his Christian faith. I destroyed his property. I disrespected him in a way that has no place in banking or in society. The live stream comments exploded. Too late. At least he admitted it. This is justice in real time. Continue, Daniel said quietly. I apologize to every customer here and everyone watching online. My actions were wrong, illegal, and inexcusable. I accept full responsibility and will work to change. Claire typed furiously, documenting everything for HR. Daniel swiped again. Claire, prepare his new contract, assistant manager, reduced salary. HR will need it in an hour. Effective immediately. This branch will implement new protocols to ensure no customer, Christian or otherwise, ever faces this again. The live stream audience held its breath as Daniel began reshaping the bank's future in real time. Comments shifted from mockery to respect. He's actually fixing things. This is leadership. From humiliation to reform in minutes. First, Daniel announced, eyes on his tablet, the Dignity First protocol. Every customer will receive the same service, no matter their appearance, clothing, or faith. Staff must greet customers within 30 seconds, and courtesy is non-negotiable. Holloway stood frozen, the weight of his demotion pressing down. Daniel's wallet, still warm in his pocket, burned with shame. Second, we're launching the Respect Monitor system. All customer interactions will be recorded and reviewed monthly by an independent civil rights organization. Any hint of bias, including anti-Christian prejudice, triggers immediate investigation. Should I schedule the technology installation, Mr. Cross? Claire asked. Yes, within 48 hours. Third, mandatory quarterly training. Every employee will complete sessions on unconscious bias, religious respect, and professional service standards. Guest speakers from affected communities, including Christian groups who face discrimination, will lead these sessions. The pearl-clad woman who had cheered Holloway earlier lingered near the exit. Shame replacing smugness. Fourth, Daniel continued, anonymous feedback systems, kiosks in every branch, a hotline that goes directly to my office. No one will be silenced again. The live stream neared 7,000 viewers as news outlets picked up the feed. Fifth, monthly community advisory meetings. Representatives from local congregations, charities, and civic groups will meet with branch leaders. Concerns will be heard before they escalate. Daniel knelt, gathering fragments of his burned check into his palm. Sarah, preserve these ashes as evidence. They'll become a memorial in this lobby titled The Cost of Assumptions. Prejudice doesn't just burn paper, it burns trust, community, and dignity. Comments rolled in, from trash to teaching tool. This guy is brilliant. Real leadership. Finally, Holloway's trembling voice broke the silence. Mr. Cross? I still have your wallet. I'm sorry. Daniel extended his hand. Thank you for returning what was never yours. The symbolic transfer of power completed Holloway's collapse from aggressor to subordinate. Now, about your community service, Daniel said, consulting his tablet again. You'll work at the Southside Financial Literacy Center every Saturday for 2 years. You'll sit across from families of faith, families like mine, who face discrimination in financial services. You'll listen to their stories until you finally understand them. Yes, sir, Holloway murmured, defeated. Your first shift begins at 9 a.m. this Saturday. The director, Mrs. Henderson, is a 67-year-old church elder who's been fighting banking discrimination for 4 decades. I suggest you pay close attention. Claire looked up from her computer. Mr. Cross, should I notify headquarters about these reforms? Already done, Daniel said, showing her the sent order. Every Liberty Trust branch will follow these standards within 90 days. The live stream comments reflected the moment, from profiling to policy. Faith prejudice crushed by reform. History in real time. Daniel looked around the lobby, his voice carrying steady authority. This wasn't about one man or one check. It was about the dignity denied when people are judged for their faith. These ashes, he held up the fragments, cost $2.3 million, but they also represent the price of prejudice. Tomorrow, they'll represent the foundation of something better. The clock read 3:15 p.m. In 12 minutes, humiliation had become reform, and bigotry had been turned into accountability. 6 months later, the memorial display stood in the lobby, ashes sealed behind glass above a brass plaque, the cost of assumptions, in memory of trust burned by prejudice. Marcus Holloway arrived early, as he had every Saturday for 26 weeks. At the Southside Financial Literacy Center, no longer a proud branch manager, now a humbled assistant manager, he carried lesson packets instead of arrogance. Morning. Mrs. Henderson, he said warmly. Good morning. Marcus, the 67-year-old Christian grandmother replied with a smile. The Patel family is waiting in room 3. Their small business loan was denied. Help them understand why and what comes next. Marcus nodded, walking past walls lined with thank you notes from families he'd once dismissed. His transformation hadn't come in a day. It was forged week after week in the faces of those who'd suffered the kind of prejudice he had once enacted. And through it, the ripple spread, from one burned check to systemic change, to something approaching redemption. The viral video of Daniel Cross's calm response to discrimination reached over 15 million views across platforms. What began as our bank burns check transformed into a movement, one that forced society to confront assumptions about faith, dignity, and worth. Dr. Sarah Lane, a sociology professor at Northwestern, added the case to her graduate curriculum on systemic bias. This incident illustrates how individual prejudice, mocking a man for his Christian faith, can escalate into institutional discrimination, she explained. But it also demonstrates how leadership can turn humiliation into systemic reform overnight. Translated into 12 languages, the footage became part of corporate training worldwide. Companies across industries adopted variations of Daniel's Dignity First protocol, recognizing that respect wasn't optional, it was essential for business success. Corporate Revolution Williams Capital Group's reforms set a new gold standard. The independent monitoring system flagged 47 incidents of bias in its first quarter, allowing correction before escalation. Minority and faith-based customer satisfaction rose 34%. More important than the numbers, we've seen a cultural shift, said regional manager Jennifer Hayes. Employees now watch out for bias in themselves and others. They intervene before it spreads. It's no longer compliance, it's conscience. Guest speakers from churches and marginalized communities gave staff emotional connections that manuals never could. Promotions and raises now factored in equity scores from customer feedback. The results spoke. First National Bank's stock price rose 12% in 6 months, driven not just by publicity, but by a growing, loyal customer base. Soon, rival banks adopted similar protocols. spreading the standards industry-wide. Wellington's journey. The man who once stood smugly over burning ashes now sat humbly across from Maria Rodriguez at the South Side Financial Literacy Center. The bank denied your loan because of debt-to-income ratio, he explained gently. But here's how we can adjust your budget and apply again. Maria's eyes welled with gratitude. You're the first banker who listened. Every family reminded Wellington of the people he'd once dismissed. His 200 hours of mandated service became 400, then 600. When the requirement ended, he kept showing up. I thought strength meant exclusion, Wellington admitted to Daniel during a monthly check-in. I've learned it means inclusion, Daniel nodded. That wisdom isn't in manuals. It's earned through relationships. The memorial's message. The ashes of Daniel's burned check, encased behind glass with a brass plaque titled The Cost of Assumptions, drew visitors from across the country. Parents explained it to children. Strangers shared their own stories of being judged for their faith or appearance. A QR code beneath the display linked to resources on unconscious bias. These ashes aren't just money lost, Daniel said in the accompanying video. They're every time someone's worth was dismissed because of their beliefs. They're a warning and an opportunity for growth. The memorial inspired replicas in corporations, universities, and community centers nationwide. Systemic change across industries. The Williams standards spread to retail, healthcare, education, even government offices. Real-time monitoring, quarterly training, and community advisory boards became common practice. A National Bureau of Economic Research study found businesses adopting the standards saw minority and faith-based customer satisfaction rise 23%, with overall retention up 18%. Technology firms built AI bias detection tools based on Daniel's monitoring model, catching subtle patterns humans might miss. Personal legacy. Daniel never considered himself the hero. I simply refused to let prejudice pass unchecked, he told audiences at universities. The real heroes are those who choose growth, like Martin. His quarterly dividend checks were still processed at the same branch, but now with the courtesy every customer deserved. He often visited unannounced, ensuring standards stayed high. That first-class boarding pass to Tokyo, once unnoticed in the chaos, led to a business expansion creating 200 jobs in underserved communities. Calm response creates opportunities anger never could, Daniel said. The call to action. The lesson of the burned check reached beyond banking. It challenged individuals. Examine your assumptions. Question your biases. Choose dignity over dismissal. Your voice matters, Daniel urged in speeches. Every time you see someone mocked for their faith or their difference and you choose to step up, you build a bridge. Social media filled with stories tagged, Fireproof Worth, ordinary people recounting moments where they chose respect over ridicule. Remember, Daniel said, holding up the ashes in an interview, they can burn your check, but they cannot burn your worth. From destruction comes creation. From humiliation, education. From prejudice, systemic healing. The burned check was no longer just ashes behind glass. It had become a seed,